Hello, everybody. Welcome to another. Is God the a-hole? Is that a thing? Is that happening right now? Yes, absolutely. Welcome, and we are going to be getting into Genesis 25 and 26 today, which is a couple of weird sort of little things. I found them very interesting. Yeah, it's the next generation of scammers going out. You know, you got to have the next generation of scammers. But before we start, what I want to do, and what I think I will do, is share with you just some readerships, because why not? Why not? I've got to send these out before I forget they're a thing. So why the hell not? I think I think I do have them. Yeah, okay, just 1 second. And Bob, take this, audience. Thanks, YouTube. Yeah, I know. YouTube's having issues. YouTube YouTube is having some real issues at the moment, Jinx. I get ya. Good to see you. I did actually remember to send it in um, um, on the Discord, which is unusual because usually I do forget. Unfortunately, and that's totally my fault. I can't blame YouTube for forgetting to put something on Discord. But um, oh, and Stop the Stupidity follows it up with 5 readerships as well. Thank you so much, Stop Stupidity. I really appreciate it, mate. Give me 1 second. Um, ooh, yeah. So Stop Stupidity. I will go through all of them at once, but thank you so much. That is awesome, and you are an absolute champ. Absolute champ. Yeah, good evening, Stop. Good to see you. Good to see you. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we got to go through these readerships. We've got 5 from me and another follow-up 5 from Stop the Stupidity. Thank you. We have actually, I've got a. I think I left my coffee behind. Wow. Okay. This is not cool. This is not cool. Um, Unless, yeah, all right. So we'll go through these. Those go out to CC Squad. Okay, that's not a good start. That's not a good start. It is early in the morning, so I've got to do re mi fa sol la ti do. Okay. Excuse me. I sound like Ken Hovind, don't I? uh, CC Squad, Vixie Kid, Mr. Muddled, OTC Atheist, James Stew. Wow, okay. I've stopped the stupidity. What a guy. What a guy. Thiasacolian, Kennedy, Arkham, Orderly, Simpy 9106. Yeah, I don't know if I should do the numbers after or not. Go grab it. No, look, Lynn brought it to me, so my wife brought it to me because she is awesome. I put out a distress call and she answered the call, which is fantastic. Andrew Martin and the Humanity Live. Winners, chicken dinners. Thank you so much for your support. Stop the stupidity, and I hope you enjoy your emotes and other benefits. But today, no, I'm good. I'm good. Like my wife was hanging out in the other room. She managed to grab it for me, which is lucky of me because it's quite probable she wasn't home, but she is. So, that makes sense. That's good. That's good. So yeah, big. You know what? Hearts for the wife. Thank you. Oh, that's good shit. Excuse me. So today is God the Asshole, and so grab your Bibles. We are doing Genesis 25. First off, I know you've got at least 3 Bibles close to hand, as all atheists do. As all atheists do. We are doing Genesis 25. The post from Yahweh. Am I the arsehole for promising my best friend's older son would serve the younger? Now, this is the passing of Abraham. This is where Abraham kicks the bucket. Yes, Abraham kicks the bucket. No longer will he do the sister-wife scam throughout the ancient Levant. It's a sad day. One of our favorite characters, Abraham, was 100% a scam artist. But don't worry, he has children to carry on the family tradition, and I wish I was joking about that. So my male infinity best friend Abraham, male, 175. Yeah, sure he was. I have my doubts. I have my doubts that people, no matter how in the ancient times they are living to 175. I just have doubts. You know, I just feel it's not an accurate representation of the human timeline. I'm just saying. Eventually died after a long life, and his estate passed primarily to Isaac. Isaac was born in the last verse, the last chapter, who was to become my new best friend. Abraham did have other sons through another wife, but while he gave them gifts, he sent them away from Isaac so there wouldn't be conflict over inheritance. Yes, and that's yeah, you would think so. You would think so. Anyway, Ishmael, Abraham's earliest son, also lived out his life and became the father of many descendants. That part of what I said did happen, as if you remember, Ishmael was sort of promised to be belligerent but still have a nation of his own, like still have lots of descendants. And he became a nation in his own right, but his line and Isaac's line remained separate. Well, that's probably a good thing. Then Isaac and Rebekah eventually had children. Rebekah struggled with infertility for a time, and Rebekah, if you remember, is Isaac's cousin. Not even a second cousin. She's a first cousin once removed. So Rebekah is the daughter of Isaac's cousin. So that's first cousin once removed. Not great for the genetics at all. It gets worse, don't worry. It gets worse. Struggled with infertility for time, and Isaac prayed about it. Yes, because whenever you're infertile, praying definitely will cure it. Just saying. They might want to see a doctor, although I can imagine there's not many doctors around at this time. But he prayed about it, sure. Thoughts and prayers. Eventually she conceived, but the pregnancy itself was difficult. The twins struggled with each other even before birth. So they were basically fighting in the womb. Yes. The Bible actually says they were basically jostling in the womb. So this is not, I mean, this might be a product of inbreeding, but I'm not sure why they were so hostile to each other in the womb. They were twins, yeah, and they were basically having fisticuffs in the womb. Okay. Rebecca asked me why this was happening, and I answered her directly. And this is one of the things that really strikes me about the Bible. It's so inconsistent. At times, the characters are like, "Why are you doing this, God?" and get no answer, and he doesn't show up, and they say, "Oh, why would you expect God to answer you?" All of this stuff, but in this, like, Rebecca just, "Why are my twins fighting?" And God just answers her. Just like, "Oh yeah, here's the reason. Just got to let you know." I don't get it. It's so inconsistent. And I answered her directly. I told her that 2 nations were in her womb. That's a pretty big womb to have 2 nations in her womb. I'm joking. I get that it was like 2 babies that would become the founders of nations. I get that's what they mean. But it does sound hilarious that two nations were in her womb. Like 2 actual countries were going to be birthed out of her birth canal. It's like, oh, Canada, wow, I better hope they're small nations, because holy crap. That they would be divided and that the older would serve the younger. People have been very critical of me here, as I am setting out the fate of these children before they have even been born. Since I am omniscient, though, I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's kind of... I mean, presumably all of this is by God's choice, right? Like, he has said, okay, the older will serve the younger. Like, that is something that will come to pass. That is what I've decided. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to me. That you're sort of going, well, that's what I've decided, that one's basically going to enslave the descendants of another. And this isn't the first time that God has made this proclamation that basically the children of one person is going to be slaves to the other one. This was done with Abraham and Ishmael as well. So, you have definitely a sort of, almost a tribalism being set up by God in the first place, which is kind of weird. Like, why does he have to do that? No idea. When the twins were born, Esau came out first. And Esau means, like, hairy one. He was very hairy, apparently. Might have something to do with the inbreeding. Might have something to do with the inbreeding, I think. Because he was insanely hairy, and Jacob was insanely smooth. I don't know. Maybe a gene got a bit warped in the family. I'm just saying. Well, Esau came out first, then Jacob followed, holding onto his heel. I'm not going to judge a baby for the way that it exits the womb. I feel that that's not a very... I don't know. That seems really weird to me. As they grew, their differences became more obvious because Esau was more physical, outdoors orientated, while Jacob was quieter and more settled. Yeah, and Jacob was kind of the scholarly type, the one that thought rather than did. I think that I would probably get along better with Jacob, though, as you'll find out, Jacob's an asshole as well. Like, seriously. Isaac favored Esau, while Rebecca favored Jacob. Yep, Jacob Mama's boy, confirmed. Confirmed. Jacob Mama's boy. Absolutely. The household divided along these lines, which was a preview of the division between the two twins. One day, Esau came in exhausted and starving while Jacob was cooking. Jacob offered food in exchange for Esau's birthright. Esau agreed and gave it up for a meal, believing he would die without it. Some say Esau undervalued something important. Others say Jacob exploited a vulnerable moment. Yeah, that's... to be honest with you, Jacob's a dick. Like, seriously, if my brother came in and was literally starving and I went, no, you're going to give me your inheritance or else you don't get this meal even though you're starving... I feel like that is a complete dick move. Like, that is really exploiting your brother, right? Like, that's a bit wild. That's a bit wild. That he couldn't have just give him some food anyway. Like, Some argued that I should have stepped in and that Jacob ought to have provided fair compensation for Esau's birthright. From my perspective, Jacob did not force Esau to do anything and let him choose for himself. It was what I had predicted, so I was right that this would happen. Should I have stepped in to prevent this division from happening? Yeah. Yeah, probably. Probably. Yeah. I don't know. This isn't really... a very cool thing to do. if someone's starving, I don't know why you wouldn't just give them some food if you've got more than enough. Like, this is very, very crass behavior, to be honest with you. I don't know who would, like, go, maybe this is where the idea of, maybe this is the idea of where they preach in order to give people meals comes from. Because right from the bat, right from Genesis, they're asking for something in exchange for charity, which makes it not charity, right? And this is something that I've gone on about. If you're asking for somebody to do something or give you something, even if that's their time to listen to a sermon, or you want them to, do a prayer with you, then what you give them in exchange is not charity. And I really want to stress this, that charity should be, hey, you get this, you don't have to give anything in return. Because if you're forcing someone to sit down in prayer for a meal, that's not charity. And obviously this isn't charity either. Yeah, I really think so. But I will get the queue happening. Oh, Humanity Live. Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I must admit I was neglecting the chat. You're very, very welcome. You can thank Stop the Stupidity for that one, actually. Stop the Stupidity is a champ who decided, you too shall have a readership. Skeptic Philosophy, good to see you. Good to see you. And Lord Megatron, good to see you. I loved you in the Transformers. I really did. I really did. Look, I'm not a new Transformers fan. I hate the Bay movies. I don't hate the Bay movies. I think that they are just busy action schlock. Like, they are what they are. It's just schlocky. I couldn't even tell you the plot. They're so forgettable. I'm not a huge fan of Bay, but I love the original Transformers. I thought it was fantastic. The original animated series kind of thing were great. They were great. They were great. Although it's kind of weird because they were kind of about ecology and energy saving and stuff, and I feel like they've been perverted into, oh, we've got to save the world. Yeah, I don't know. It was more about like, oh, they want all of our energy and resources. We've got to conserve our resources. Just saying. It was like the ecological message wasn't as out there as Captain Planet, but it definitely was a thing. Hold on, I've got to do a poll for you people. I've got to do a poll. Excuse me, take my poll, please, sir. Was God right for allowing for determining one son would be servant to the other? Sorry, just 1 second. I'll get this poll thing up, and then I'll go into comments and we shall discuss. And I'm really interested in your opinion. I really am. It's kind of weird to me that I feel like sometimes theists want it both ways. They want to say that God determines everything, but people's choices are their own. I don't get how that works. I really don't get how that works. But there is the poll going out there. Feel free to vote. Feel free not to. Yeah, all good. All good. Love it if you would, but hey, I'm not gonna hold you to it. That's fine. Let's see. The end of the Pharaoh's curse. Yeah, no, Jinx, you would think so. You would think so. You just wait. You just wait. Just wait. It's the end of Abraham doing the old sister wife scam. Okay, but the scam is still on. I will tell you that right now. 175. Why so young? Yeah, didn't Methuselah supposedly live to 950 or something? It was ridiculous. I know that Methuselah was the longest lived. Yeah, 969 apparently, which I don't know. I don't know about that one, champ. Yeah, the only reason I remember the name Methuselah was that there's a pine tree called Methuselah and it's hella old. There was room for the referee. Imagine the stretch marks. Well, there was room for an entire nation, so apparently there was multiple people who could referee. I mean, what is the smallest nation on Earth? Maybe Andorra or something? Probably Vatican City. Probably Vatican City. Yeah, Vatican City. Bam, got it. Got it. It's Vatican City. So apparently there was a couple of Vatican cities in there. God is just an arsehole. Yeah, it's as Hitchens once said, it's one of the vilest characters to ever be written in fiction. You know, and I agree with him. Absolutely terrible person. China and India. Ouch. Yeah, yeah. India fights more with Pakistan, though. I gotta say, they do fight more with Pakistan than anybody else. So, yeah. Um, this fight ain't over just because we're out. Well, yeah, yeah. Especially when God's determining it to happen. Um, I love this verse for Christians' free will argument. If Esau had a choice, could he have made choices where he did not serve the younger? Oh, SP, yeah. So there's a number of arguments for this and away from it. The free will under God predicting something. If God predicts that you're going to trip and fall next time you get up, is there any way that you could get up correctly? Because the only reason why it can't be a free choice is because God's never wrong, right? So if ahead of time he knows that you're going to trip and fall, is there any way you could choose to get up differently or do something different? Or if God knows that you're going to choose to leave your wife, is it really a choice when there is no other possible world where it could happen? Because God knows the outcome of every possible world. Now, I've heard multiple arguments against this, like, for instance, you have a free will, but God is just able to watch it kind of thing, like a person watching a videotape. The person had free will, but he's watching the tape of it, sort of a security camera, if you will, but ahead of time. And that to me doesn't make any sense, because if you have a security camera that's recorded something, and then you know ahead of time what's going to happen, it will always play out the same whenever you play it. Basically, it will always be the same. Like the original person might have had free will, but the person that you're watching doesn't have free will. They will always do the actions recorded by the camera. So I don't see how, if God knows the actions of the character they're watching, or the agent, the person that they're watching, if they know that beforehand, in a time beforehand, how it could ever play out differently. It can't. And this is where the free will argument with God falls down. Because if anything, anybody, or anything is determined ahead of time, then it can't be free will. It can't be. So I don't understand how you can have God omniscience, like God knowing the outcomes of all possible worlds, and free will at the same time. I don't get that. I don't understand how that works. Mm. It seems like a paradox to me. It seems like an absolute paradox to me. But that's okay. That's okay. I think they're sort of trying to argue that a God will knows the outcome of everything, knows what you will choose freely, if that makes sense. And it doesn't to me. But that you get a free will, but God somehow transcends time so they can see what you chose freely at the moment before it happens. My problem is if you see it before it happens, then there's no other possible outcome that you can have, which precludes free will. So to me, it's just a paradox, but that's the argument that is made. Yeah. Hi, Robin. So good to see you. God is a dick. Well, I mean, I don't know about that one. I really don't. Definitely some stuff that I would consider to be highly questionable. Highly questionable. All right, let's see the outcome of this poll. We're getting through them very, very quickly today. That's okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. God is the asshole. Yeah, I agree. I think that sort of, instead of, it's very weird because you've got a God that sort of says that they're not the division, the person that brings division. That's Satan. They're the ones that unite people, and God throughout the Old Testament does nothing but divide people. We had the Tower of Babel earlier, where people were divided. We had, the here where he's basically dividing people, making them serve one another, making them not work together. It's kind of weird for a God to bring such strife and division. Can I also say Jacob's a dick? Like, seriously, if your brother comes in and they're starving, to basically go, hey, you've got to give up your inheritance to get some food. I mean, that is a dick move. That is absolutely awful. I don't get, though, why Esau just didn't go, well, screw you, and grab some food from somebody else. It is the Old Testament. We're probably lucky he didn't kill and eat his brother or something, quite frankly. It is the Old Testament, which is very wild sometimes. So, yeah, Daryl, but if a god knows everything that's going to turn out, then it is predefined. Sorry, if a god knows everything beforehand and can't be wrong, then it is predefined. Like, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Um, okay. And we will move on to Genesis 26. Oh, there we go. That's better. That's better. The second one. Was I wrong to support my best friend even though he repeated the mistakes of his father? Yeah, probably. Probably. There was a famine in the land. This sounds like deja vu. Where have we Alston Sims asked probable guys why God was against the Tower of Babel but is fine with our moon trips. It'd be interesting to see how they would respond. But if I put my theist hat on, Robin, I think I would sort of say, hey, the Tower of Babel was a sort of spiritual tower, I guess, that it was trying to get to God, to heaven, but the moon is not heaven, kind of thing. I don't know. It's strange. It's strange. There was a famine in the land, and Isaac, male, 70, considered leaving, just like his father had done years earlier. Yeah. Yeah, Abraham did do that, yes. Abraham went to Egypt and pulled the old sister wife scam on the Pharaoh. Got very rich from it as well. Very profitable to be a scam artist in the early Bronze Age. Fantastic. He planned to go to Egypt, which made sense from a survival perspective, but I intervened and told him not to go there but to stay in the land I would show him. I told him that I had made a promise to Abraham, that his descendants would be numerous, and that they would inherit the land, and that through them others would be blessed. I reassured Isaac that I would keep this promise to him. Okay, so he's made a covenant with Abraham. He's then sort of reiterated and reinforced that covenant with Isaac, basically. Isaac stayed, which is what I asked, but almost immediately he repeated the behaviour of his father. Yeah, He was afraid that the men of the region might kill him because of his wife Rebecca. So he said she was his sister. This is it. This is the sister wife scam. This is what his dad did. Like seriously, he is simply doing the same thing that Abraham did with Sarah, with his wife Rebecca, except, um, because of his wife Rebecca. So he said she was his sister. This was nearly identical to what Abraham done, except Rebecca wasn't his sister. She was his cousin. I didn't stop him from making that choice, even though I knew where that kind of deception could lead. Yeah. So this isn't okay. So they've graduated from the sister wife scam to the cousin wife scam. But it's still the sister wife scam. He's still saying, "Hey, it's my sister," when in actual fact, at least Abraham was honest when he said, "She is my sister," because yes, she was his wife, but technically she was his sister as well. So at least Abraham was more honest. Isaac isn't even honest. Rebecca isn't his sister. She's his cousin. I didn't know there was so much frigging inbreeding in the Bible. This is the good book. Eventually, the local king, Abimelech, and I thought that Abimelech was in an earlier verse. I thought Abimelech was in an earlier verse. Yeah, he was. So I don't know whether King Abimelech, this is the same one, or maybe like the king of Gerar. So I don't know whether this is the same Abimelech or whether it's a different Abimelech. Like sometimes kings pass down the same name. I don't know if it's the same one, but I think that Abimelech should cotton on to this by now. I think they should put out, you know how they give those warnings to old people, like, oh, if a Nigerian prince comes, don't. I think they should give the people of Gerar, just sort of saying, hey, watch out for the Canaan, the Israelites going around saying that, hey, this is my sister and it's his wife. Eventually, the local king Abimelech noticed Isaac and Rebekah together and realized the truth. He confronted Isaac and pointed out that someone could have unknowingly taken Rebekah and brought guilt on the whole community. Abimelech then issued a decree protecting them both, warning that anyone who harmed them would be punished. So Isaac is not as good with this scam as his father. He messed it up. I think, I think the verse says he caught him stroking her hand or something like that. I believe that's what it says. Isaac and Abimelech, yeah. Yeah. So Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. Yeah. So Isaac can't keep his caresses in his pants. So Abimelech cottoned onto him, but he didn't attack him or anything. But it's kind of weird that he's doing exactly the same thing as his father. You may say that I should have let Isaac know he'd be safe in the land, but I knew everything would turn out fine. The king did make a proclamation to protect them, so everything turned out well for Isaac, even if deception was involved. After that, Isaac prospered significantly. His crops grew, his wealth increased, and his influence expanded. The local people became envious, and they stopped up the wells that Abraham's servants had dug, and eventually asked Isaac to move away because he had become too powerful. And this is kind of weird. they basically filled in the wells that Abraham had dug in his time, and they said, "Get out of here! You're too powerful." Uh, Isaac's kind of I don't know. He's kind of the mama's boy. He doesn't really fight for any of this stuff. He just sort of says okay. Um, it's kind of weird. Isaac moved and began digging new wells, but each time he found water, disputes followed. Other people claimed the wells, forcing him to move on, searching for water again and again. He didn't fight over them, he just kept relocating until he found a space without conflict. Only then did he settle more securely. Um, I've got a funny feeling he's like just moving from land to land, and people are going, "Hey, this is our spot. Get the hell out of here! Like, what are you doing?" Um, yeah. Maybe this is where the anti-immigration stance of the Christian people come from, you know. But I thought that there was a sort of undercurrent. As remember when you were exiles in foreign lands, to the Jewish and the Christian people. Remember, you were exiles in foreign lands, so treat people, wandering people with charity. But apparently, that's not a thing. I appeared to him again and reassured him that I was with him, repeating the promise once more. He responded by building an altar and calling on me. Not long after, Abimelech came to him, this time seeking peace. He acknowledged that I was clearly with Isaac and wanted a formal agreement so there would be no conflict between them. I feel like Abimelech is kind of the good guy of the story. Like, seriously, he gets sort of lied to by first Abraham and then his son Isaac, and still he's like, "Hey, I just want peace. I just want a peaceful kingdom." I mean, that's pretty good. Critics say I allowed a cycle to repeat without correction, and that I let others deal with the consequences of Isaac's fear, and then still rewarded him with success. Others have questioned why I allowed deception at all, because I could easily protect Isaac without him lying about his wife. Was I wrong to do so? Yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah. Like, you could have just cleared all of this up. Like, at this point, don't forget, God is talking to God at this point, right? Like, God's reassuring Isaac that he would keep this promise, that he'd inherit the land. He could have easily, and don't forget, God knows what's going to happen ahead of time. Okay, He knows that Isaac is going to try on the old sister wife scam. Okay, He knows for sure, right? Like, God must know for sure that Isaac is going to try the old sister wife scam. He could have at that point said, "Hey, don't you know present your wife as your wife. You need not present your wife as your sister, O Isaac, for I, the Lord, protect you." Was that beyond the capacity of God to do? Like, Isaac, dude, hang on a second.
Oh, Isaac, do not do the sister wife scam. There is no need. You are wrong. God will protect you.
There, problem solved. You don't have to scare some who honestly seems like a really good king who's like, "Yeah, I don't want conflict. I don't want to take other people's wives. I don't want to, basically do anything wrong." And you scare him to death with, well, in the first case, with the case of Abraham, it was dreams. Like, the God came to him in a dream and threatened him. And then in the second case, he's like, "What if somebody took your wife? We would be cursed." So yes, you'd think Pharaoh's curse would be over, but no, the sister wife scam goes on. It's a family business. It's handed down from father to son. Was God right for allowing Isaac to perform the old sister wife trick? Like this is the thing. It's sort of when um so who's heard of trolley problems, right? Like, so trolley problems in morality, they're like the bread and butter of morality. Like, you've got a trolley that's on a track that's heading towards 20 people, etc., etc., etc. Everybody's heard of trolley problems. Nobody likes them. And fair enough, because usually they're used to show where there are cracks in morality. Morality is flawed, that they suck. I get you. But a lot of people, or some people, sort of say, because the whole premise is that you've got a lever that you can pull to, say, kill one person to save 50 people, kind of thing. That kind of stuff, right? And they say, well, I wouldn't pull the lever, so I'm not, um, I'm not culpable. I'm not making a decision. The problem is that you are making a decision to not pull the lever at all, right? Like, that is a decision in and of itself. Because if you have the capacity to do so, not doing it is a decision. You're like, well, I'm not going to. That's still a decision. It's still an action. So inaction is a form of action, right? Doing nothing is doing something, if that makes sense. It kind of is. So that is what I'd argue for that kind of thing. And here we not only have God taking the action of not interceding, but interceding all the time and deciding not to in this instance. So it's sort of like saying, well, and so I really want to point out that when God is interceding to say, hey, you're going to get this land, you're going to be fine. I'm going to show you where their water is later in the thing. Like, just keep going. He is interceding, but chooses not to in the case of the old sister wife scam. Where's my thing? Sorry, I was in the middle of doing the poll. So I think that when you have such blatant intercession of an omnipotent, omniscient creator of the universe, anytime that there isn't there isn't God interfering, is a decision by God. And this is sort of the problem of evil. It can be sort of fun. It funnels into the problem of evil, right? Because even if you say, hey, an omnibenevolent God would not, may not interfere at all, you still have the God standing by and doing nothing, which is an action in and of itself. And if you have the God interceding in other affairs, but not this one, that is a decision in and of itself. Now, with the problem of evil, a lot of people point to, well, the action that God does of not interceding may have an intended consequence that is actually good further down the road, because we can't see that far. The problem there becomes that if that God is omnibenevolent, then even the most horrible thing must be good, because that's what a God would want. So I think there's definitely arguments to make against that. I saw recently a theist do a video on the problem of evil, and I thought it was very measured, very good. I'll try and find it again, maybe for a discussion on the problem of evil. It was mostly about Alex O'Connor's problem of evils in the natural world, natural evils. And animal evils. I don't think you have to go to animals, kind of thing. And I think there's something missing off the end of, because a lot of philosophers like William Lane Craig go, well, it was a great blessing that these children died. It's actually a blessing, kind of thing, that these things happen, because what he's alluding to is that idea of down the road where we can't see, right, Joe? So he was talking about, I believe, the Amalekites, where the Amalekites were wiped out, that it was actually a blessing because down the road something good happened that we can't see as mortals, but God can. So he orchestrated it knowing that it was better for the young people to be than not, because he can see the events down the road. And I get that. Like, I really do understand that. But, and here's where I think that problem falls down, that you can sort of say, well, why should we intercede with natural evils? Right? Like, so you could argue that, hey, you know, there was a plague. A lot of children died. It looks bad to us, but God knows it was part of His plan down the road for something good to happen. That had to happen, right? That was a necessary component to get the world to, say, a state of love or something like that. But I think that that then the idea comes up, why should we fight against plagues then? Why should we try to fight against natural evils? Is that interfering with God's plan? Can God's plan even be interfered with? Do we have the free will to interfere with the plan and do things that God doesn't want us to do? Because if it's all according to plan, then we don't have free will. So there's some real problems in there with the entailments of saying, hey, it looks bad, but it's actually good down the road. Then would you, if you could, stop that plague from occurring? Like, okay, why should we vaccinate people? If it's God's plan to allow children to die of, measles or whooping cough or any of the, things we have vaccines for, why should we do vaccines? Why should we try and save them? Why should we try and make it so that they don't experience this natural evil? Because, we're just interfering with something good down the road. We may be turning it into something evil. And I find it hard to believe that God's like, we'll try as hard as possible against these natural evils, and whatever you do will be preordained. Because if that's the case, then we have no free will. We're just simply playing along with the plan. It all becomes very confusing, and I really understand why people, don't like morality discussions. I totally get it. It's so complicated, and it gets, especially theistic ones, it gets so convoluted trying to make the morality work. Like, it gets so convoluted. And I know why people don't like free will discussions, because it gets so convoluted, especially when you introduce omniscience, knowing everything. It gets so convoluted about free will. I totally get it. I totally get it. Okay, let's see some of the comments here. Yeah, I think I did Daryl last. Yeah, got you. Yeah, some people say God would not take away people's free will, but if he states it about anyone, as he has, then he took away their ability to make it otherwise. And yeah, that's the perspective that I'm coming from, SP. I would agree, mate. I would absolutely agree. It's kind of a contradiction. Like, we have free will, but God knows what we will freely choose. I just do not get how that would work. And, sort of demonstrating it in a practical way, like, if God knows that I will drop this pen, right, is there any way I could stop from dropping it? Is there any other possible outcome than me dropping it, right? So God knows whether I'm going to drop the pen or not. God knows my choice to drop the pen or not drop the pen in this moment. Is there any way I could do the opposite than what God already knew at the start of time? No. And this, usually I drop it, but this time I'm not going to, just to show you. Just to show you. But yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. If God knew billions of years ago that I would not drop the pen, then there is no possible way at that point I could drop it. There's no way. If he's always right, or else A, God would be wrong, or B, um, um, my free will can supersede God's knowledge, which neither of them work. It does not mean everything is previous. Oh, yeah, I read that. Sorry, Daryl. I got you. And welcome, Daryl. It's good to see you. Good to see you. I'm waiting for one of the Voyager probes to run into heaven. Look, I've got a soft spot for Voyager 2. I mean, Voyager 2 was supposed to run for I think it was 6 months. And it's still going. Like it is one of the best things. Now, my hard spot for Voyager 2, phrasing. What I don't like about Voyager 2, it's basically carrying the basically the interstellar address, if you will, for Earth, like our location in the universe. That may not be a good idea. As if anybody has heard of it, there is a hypothesis. Now, there's a paradox that's out there. What's it called? It's called the Fermi paradox. Fermi paradox. The Fermi paradox basically says, if life exists and the universe is so huge, why haven't we come across any other life? Right? Like, because the certainty that life will arise in such a large universe, the size of the universe is also what probably causes them not to interact with one another, right? Like, so the sheer distances and the sheer amount, the tyranny of distance and time is probably what causes us to not find other life. So it's kind of this idea of, in such a massive, overwhelmingly massive universe, there's got to be other life. The overwhelming massiveness of the universe is also what prevents us from finding it. But there is a hypothesis that sort of addresses the Fermi paradox. It kind of says the dark forest hypothesis. So one of the things that addresses why we haven't found any signs of life, and this, I believe it was related to the 3-body problem, the show. The dark forest essentially is the hypothesis that everybody's hiding, right? That the universe is like a dark forest. It's a hostile place where other organisms are very, very hostile to one another. So organisms basically will hide and not signal their presence. Like, it would be very, very unwise to let everybody know where you are, because in what is a hostile universe, if somebody else finds you, they will probably destroy you, right? This is the dark forest. I probably don't agree with that, but I do think that maybe yelling out your presence in a dark forest is not a great idea. I get it. We don't know if the dark forest hypothesis is true or not. Like, it's just a hypothesis. We have no idea whether it's true or not. We don't know. Until we do, it might not be wise to announce where you are. It might not be. But I think it was sent out, Voyage 2 was sort of sent out in the optimism of the sort of 70s going into 80s. I think it was 70s that Voyager 2, yeah, 77. So it was more optimistic time where we thought, hey, if we encounter any other life, we can work with them. And optimistically, I think that would be a good idea, but at the same time, I think it's good to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Another part of me thinks that sort of if you are on a life raft and you are you're confined to this life raft in an incredibly hostile environment, right? So Earth's used as a spaceship by Sagan, for instance. Carl Sagan referred to it as spaceship Earth, just because we're sort of confined on this one thing, surrounded by a sea of really hostile environment, which is space. I don't know how much more hostile an environment could be, with being, a vacuum and radiation through it. And yeah, it's just a very hostile environment. When you're in that situation, you may not like. So here's what I think: that you may want to shoot a flare up, even if it does, get unwanted attention, right? That when you are on one tiny dirt moat in the middle of a hostile environment, sending up a flare may not be a bad idea, right? Like it may be better to generate that attention rather than just inevitably sort of try on your own to survive. That's another sort of way of looking at it. I personally think that we should find out more about the environment around us and who is in it. Like if we're in pirate infested waters, it might not be a good idea. So that's my issue with Voyager 2. That's my issue. It's carrying our address, and we basically doxed ourselves. Voyager 2 was us doxing ourselves, which, I mean, it may not do anything. It might have been a really, really dumb idea. Now, Voyager 2 is 12.8 billion miles from Earth, and it still is sending back sort of little bits and pieces of data, which is just awesome. Just awesome. Its power supply is depleting. It's left it's in interstellar space. It's left the heliosphere, and it was supposed to go for I can't remember. It was supposed to go for a mission that was fairly short, in all things, and it's still going, which is just amazing. They don't build them like that anymore. They don't build them like that anymore. Yeah, they predicted to allow operations to continue to at least 2020. It's surpassed all expectations. What a little champ. What a little champ. I absolutely fantastic. I can't remember how long the mission was supposed to go for, though. It wasn't supposed to go for that long. I am really impressed. And actually the some of the rovers on Mars are the same. They weren't supposed to go for that long. They're still going. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Pharaoh's Curse. Yeah, so Pharaoh's Curse, if you're unaware, it's the idea that the curse, like, so this sister wife scam where Abraham says, "Oh, this is my sister and not my wife." Thing is, when he went to Egypt and did that scam, the pharaoh took Sarah, or Sarai as she was known at that point, into his household, and then a curse came upon his household. So a lot of people have suggested that curse was some form of sexually transmitted disease, some STD or something. So that the curse wasn't supernatural; it was a disease that he got from Sarai. And because it was his sister and, supposed to be a virgin, he's like, what the hell? This is your wife. Yeah. So that's sort of one of the interpretations. I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but it is funny if that is what happened and they went, well, you're cursed. Son of a... Yeah, you thought the sister-wife scam was over, Jinx. No. We just have a new generation of sister-wife scammers, like, wandering throughout Canaan, pretending that, wow. And it's weird. It's so weird because, like, Isaac beforehand is told he'd be fine. He would inherit the land. So why is he thinking he's going to be killed? I don't understand it. Like, I do not understand why Isaac would get reassurance from God and immediately go, well, I'm going to be killed if I don't say. I think that this is a scam. Sister wife scam was the family business. Yeah. I know where Isaac got this from. And Skeptic, you are correct. It was half sister. So I believe they shared, Abraham and Sarai shared the same father, right? So they shared the same father. Now, Rebecca was the granddaughter of Abraham's brother, right? So Rebecca, which is the sister wife in this example, is also related to Isaac. So it is getting, their family tree is getting pretty mangrovey here. They really are, you know, and it gets worse as it goes along. I really worry for this family and their genetic makeup, because and it really shows their sort of ignorance of sort of what happens when you start to, because Abraham, actually, sorry, Isaac, was it Isaac or Abraham, to get a wife for his son, he sent them back to where his relatives lived. Like, he went and sought out somebody from, well, not his own family, not his own close family, but at least his kin kind of thing. So, he, you know, God should have said, hey, Abraham, get some genetic diversity, my guy. Like, seriously. Oh, the trolley problem? You sacrificed myself to save all. I don't think that is an option. It sort of derails the trolley problem. I mean, no pun intended, but, you know, it really does derail the whole point of it. So you don't have any other options in the hypothetical construct that we're making here. Fourth option, Jimmy the Switch to derail the trolley and take them all out. Sure. Why not? No, you don't have any other options, Jinx. You don't have any other options. You have the two options and that's it. Look, I realize that trolley problems are really simplified morality and there should be other options. Sure. But they're just to make a point. They're to make a point that our view of morality changes depending on the circumstances. That's all it's there to do. You know, and I think that that's true. I think it is relative what we would decide. I think that if you had a choice between, you know, eliminating, like pulling the lever and killing a child, your child, and some, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer on the track, I would choose a Jeffrey Dahmer. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. One's a piece of shit. Like, you know, that is fair. I think that is completely moral. You know, if one's an innocent child and one is a mass murderer, you know, I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. You know, whereas if it is, you know, some innocent people, like 10 innocent people, and one child, it would be a harder choice. You know, like, it would be a much harder choice. You know, and this is to sort of just get you thinking about morality may not have hard answers. It may not be like objective kind of thing. Because don't forget that in the trolley problems, the people that are saying that morality is objective would have to say there are objective answers to this thing. Like, there would be an objectively correct choice that could be made in every circumstance. And I don't believe that's the case. But, you know. But hey, it's horrifying that you want to take everybody out. Does that include you? Does that include you? Like, derail the trolley, take them all out, including yourself? I don't know. I wonder. Should we turn a Christian anti-abortion talking point against them? One of those kids could have cured cancer. Well, we don't know. This is the problem with um, um, the whole thing about Christian ethics as far as that's concerned. When it is when it is something that you know, the Bible says it's fine because it's in God's plan, but we don't have the luxury of seeing ahead of time. So when the people in the Bible do it, presumably, according to their theology, it's for a good reason down the line, right? And presumably when it is a natural evil, because God is doing it, it's for a good reason down the line, right? When it's a choice that humans make, it's a product of free will and therefore may be completely evil, right? Like it may be completely and utterly evil. And I don't sort of see the problems there. I don't sort of see why or how we can tell if just say for instance Moses got information from God that, hey, you've got to, wipe out the Amalekites, or whether that is a person going, well, I'm going to wipe out the Amalekites and God told me to. Like, how do you actually see or how do you determine whether something is commanded by God or just a madman? There is no way to distinguish between the two. And you might say, hey, you can tell who is being talked to by God by the fruit kind of thing. But, God apparently will tell people to wipe tribes from the earth or command Abraham to kill his son or command all kinds of wild and wacky stuff. So, we can't say, hey, that seems insane. God would never command that because God literally commanded some insane stuff. Sodom, for instance, destroy Sodom because the men were all reprehensible. But what about the animals? What about the babies? Are you telling me there's a massive city with no babies in it whatsoever? That's ridiculous. But he wipes out everybody. So, the idea that God wouldn't command these things, I don't think that holds. One of those kids could have cured cancer. Yeah, sure. Well, we don't know, right? We don't know. Presumably, if one of those kids could cure cancer, God wouldn't be wiping them out. But, I don't know. I don't know. But this talking point, this anti-abortion talking point as, well, if you perform abortions on children, one of them could have cured cancer, you've also got to acknowledge that one of them could be the next Hitler as well. Like, you can't just... So when there's no counterfactuals, there's no way to know what the alternative could be, you can't just say, hey, it would turn out for the best, right? You don't know that. Like, we might be avoiding a World War III by doing that. You can't tell. All we can do is look at the consequences we're aware of and say, what is the consequence for that? Hello, Brenta. Hello, Kelly. So good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. It's good to see you. Actually, none of the characters ever actually existed at all would be most likely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, there may be a person that existed at some point in time whose names were the same kind of thing. I think that it's a moot point. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things whether, someone by the name of Abraham lived at some point. He certainly didn't live to 179 or whatever, right? And he certainly wasn't having God in his ear telling him to do stuff or appearing as a fire pot at one point. Who knows why that happened? But, it is the case that it is most likely a character based upon somebody in history, right? Like a fictional character, like we have Achilles, for instance, right? It's a fictional character based, or Heracles. It's a fictional character based upon probably somebody that did live, but in no way has any comparison to them. But that doesn't mean we can't evaluate their actions, especially if other people are using the stories around them as a moral guide, right? We can still evaluate their actions. I can still look at the story of Heracles and say, oh yeah, he was the hero of the story. He did all of these labors. He was a humble guy. He was a slave at one point. He was enslaved and sort of worked out his slavery. And he was, tried to help his friends. And he had these good, that's the hero of the story. And Hera, his mother, is definitely the villain of the story, like the goddess Hera, the queen of the gods, because she sort of cursed him and did all these horrible things. She tried to attack him with the Hydra, things like that, right? But we can still evaluate fictional characters for their morality. Hell, Jordan Peterson does so all the time. He's like, oh, atheists are, horribly immoral because in Crime and Punishment by Tolstoy, this atheist killed somebody and didn't have any problem. It's like, that's a fictional character, my guy. But you can still say, hey, that character is evil. I don't know how you apply the morality of a fictional character to reality. Like just because that character is an evil piece of crap doesn't mean that, just because Abraham was a piece of crap doesn't mean that all Jews are that doesn't follow, right? It does not follow. You can say Muhammad was a brutal warlord, but not all Muslims are like that. We can't apply that. But I do agree with you. It's most likely that they're fictional. What's up? We're going through doing passages from the Bible and evaluating them under a modern-ish Reddit style to see if somebody wrote in what God did in Reddit, am I the arsehole? Would they be the arsehole? That's basically what we're doing. And pretty much, yeah. Yeah, Old Testament. Yeah, I'd expect the New Testament to be a lot better. But hey. Hello, Purple. So good to see you. Sentient beings? Barely. It is early in the morning. I'm not sure how sentient I am, but thank you. God wiped out all the kids that killed cancer because God was getting paid off by Big Pharma. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said by that for that. That it may not be profitable for Big Pharma to cure anything. It may be more profitable to treat it without curing it. And I think that's where the government has to step in, and they don't enough to say, hey, we have to monitor research to sort of make sure that they are working towards the best outcomes. I was considering something about incentives for companies to do morally or ethically correct things rather than just social backlash. Because at the moment, and Purple, it's a really good point. At the moment, companies and corporations, the only, because governments dropped the ball on corporations. Let's face it, they have absolutely capitulated to corporate interests above, citizen interests, social interests, and the only real thing that is keeping them doing any ethics at all is social backlash. The backlash of people going, no, you suck, and we're not going to A, vote for you, or B, buy your products, kind of thing. We're going to socially outcast this corporation. It's, but even that doesn't work flawlessly. I was thinking about ways that we could incentivize companies to behave ethically. And I think there has to be ways we can incentivize companies to behave ethically, but it would require political will, and we don't have that at the moment where corporations are concerned. So, sort of going back to my original point, I think that Big Pharma only gets away with what it gets away with because the government allows it to, and getting money and business interests out of government influence should be the number one priority. I think all problems lead back to that one, of why the government isn't doing this to protect it. The government could, it doesn't. Why not? Because of money in politics. Bribery, basically. I mean, what is lobbying but legal bribery, essentially, in my opinion? That's my opinion. Please, it isn't representative of the channel or any person that I engage with, but is my opinion that lobbying is legal bribery. And in some way, we have to address that first off before we make any headway whatsoever, in my opinion. Abortion is wrong, and someone doesn't have to believe in God to realize this. It's wrong for the same reason killing is wrong in general. I'm an atheist. Oh, no problem. Hey, you're entitled to your opinion. I get you. I, in my opinion, I don't think abortion is wrong. I think that it should not be entered into lightly. However, my argument is on bodily autonomy. I don't think it's right for anybody to use my body in a way that I do not want them to. They should not be able to come in and make me eat anything. They shouldn't, unless, of course, I've gone insane and I'm starving. Like, that's a different story. But I don't think that they should force me to grow organs for the rich, or grow skin grafts for the rich. I don't think they should force me to not get a medical treatment that I want, right? Like, I should be able to get medical treatment. For instance, I was and maybe this says a lot about me in my life, but I was once looking at I wanted to get a vasectomy. Now, I saw doctors because, hey, any medical procedure should not be entered into lightly, ever, right? We should be able to consult with experts on the best outcome for us. But there was basically a lot of pushback to the hospital that I was going to go to, or that I usually went to, and I didn't know why. It was weird because this hospital said, oh, we'll undo a vasectomy. We won't perform one. And I'm like, what the hell? What's that all about? And my wife sort of said, yeah, they're run by a Catholic organization. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? As an idiot, not realizing, hey, Catholic hospitals will not perform vasectomies because they see it as have strayed. Or am I being raptured? Am I being raptured? Is it the rapture? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. It looks like we're back. I'm sorry about that. I don't want to happen. Anyway, so I didn't piece two and two together. The Catholic organization would not allow vasectomy, so I had to go to a different hospital, and it was fine. It was just kind of, but I wouldn't be permissible with someone doing that to me for any reason, or forcing me to carry something that I don't want to carry, or taking blood to save a life, right? I wouldn't be okay with that. So we have a case where you're asking a woman to carry a child against their will and use their body for somebody else, even if that somebody is a young child kind of thing, a embryo, or zygote or a baby or whatever you want to call it, okay? Because I know that people say, oh, it's a baby. It's more an embryo, but you're forcing them to carry it against their will. And here's the thing. There is risk involved with that. Now, I get you. It's not a high risk of something going wrong and something harmful happening to the woman. But there is a risk. Women still do die in childbirth. Okay, there's definitely a risk. And it may be a low risk. And just aside, the US's maternal mortality rate is unconscionably high for a first world country, the richest country in the world. Unconscionably high. Just going to put that out there. But anyway, there is always a risk that they could die or suffer long-term permanent medical issues from childbirth. Now, it's not a high risk, I grant you, but what right do I have to say to somebody, your body must be used for this and you are to incur this risk? I don't think that that is something that I don't think that is something that I'm allowed to enforce upon anybody. You know, I shouldn't be allowed to enforce upon somebody, well, you're going to give blood even though you don't want to. They have autonomy over their body. That, you know, or you've got to put up with this mole on you because that is a natural thing that you're going through. There's still a risk, right? Like, we shouldn't deny medical treatment to people if they want to minimize their risk and have autonomy over their body, right? I should be able to decide that I don't want this mole, I want to get rid of it. Even if that is a higher risk than just leaving it, because I don't want the risk of maybe it turning into, turning malignant and it, turns into cancer. I should be able to have that medical treatment. So the fact that there is another person involved is irrelevant, right? I can't make a woman risk her life, even though the risk is small, or risk her health, even though the risk is small, in order to provide for another person by using their body. That should not be a thing. Now, there is an argument, and I do agree with it, that a person should be responsible for, say, a life that they brought into this world. And I get it, yes. But I think that we have to allow a certain section of time for a woman to decide whether she wants that responsibility or not. So I'm not in favor of late-term abortions unless it's absolutely medically necessary, right? So past a certain point where she's accepted responsibility for the offspring or the child or the baby or the zygote or embryo, whatever you want to call it, I think there should be a cutoff there where you have accepted responsibility for that. But in order to preserve bodily autonomy, we do have to give her a choice of whether she wants to use her body for this or not. Right? Like, we really have to. Because I wouldn't accept somebody saying, hey, there's a guy that's dying, you've got to give up your blood to support him or else he will die. Even if it was my child, I would still want the right to say, no, there is a risk involved in that, and it's my body, I get to choose what to do with it. That's why I think it's fine. But I will, reiterate that if a woman accepts responsibility and goes through with the pregnancy, then they have the responsibility over that child growing in their womb. Past a certain point, if they take responsibility, then yeah, I get you. But I think that they should have a choice. So I'm not in favor of late-term abortions for non-medical reasons. I'm not. Another facet of the problem of God or madman in the description of a true believer is almost, yeah. Another facet of the problem of God or madman is the description of a true believer is almost verbatim for a description of one possessed. Yes. Yeah. A prophet is like, their rants are indistinguishable from a madman. There's no difference between them. No difference between. Always a pleasure to have you, Kelly. Always. Purple. The best thing to do with the Bible is to use it for rolling papers. Yeah, okay, I get the sentiment. It's an important book, right? So I've often said this, and I'm not sure if you've heard it lately, so I'll say it again. It's an important book, right? Like, it tells us a lot about the people. I love mythology. I think a book of Viking mythology is a really important book, right? The Bible's an important book. That doesn't mean the same as true, right? The stories it tells are important for us to understand the people who have come before us, the how they thought in that time, things and stories that they were going through. It is an important book. That doesn't mean it's true. Those are two totally separate things. I think Jurassic Park is an important book. It doesn't mean I think it's true. It's just it's yeah. So I don't think the problem is the Bible, right? I don't think the problem is the Bible. And that might be contentious for some of you. I don't think that's the problem. The problem is how people see the Bible. The problem is the value of truth people are putting on the Bible. That's the problem. It's fine as a book. It tells us a lot about the people. It tells us a lot about the way they thought. It tells us a lot about how humans think. But, people think that it's absolutely true, especially the literalists, man. They are something else. Like the world is 6,000 years old, the fundamentalists. Dang. I mean, seriously. The US government used to give grants for people to develop inventions that would help the public good. Yeah, but not only that, right? What I was thinking was sort of something else, an incentive structure for, because not all companies, not all companies, do inventions and produce and invent things that would require a grant or something. But, I mean, some companies, yes, they make profit, but they are essential. That's the thing. They are or have become essential. They produce goods, they offer services. You want a plumber or whatever, and I think that capitalism is savable, but it's got to undergo some kind, a real radical transformation. That we've got to come up with some systems that prioritize people rather than prioritizing the capital itself. And that seems to be the problem. That in between people's well-being and capital, they'll choose capital every single time, every single day of the week. The only time they choose well-being is that when that well-being will elevate them to a point where they're getting more capital. So there's got to be some kind of systems. I mean, we're clever apes. We can come up with some systems to do that. But yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, I think there are some government agencies, like, for instance, you have NASA, which just, it's got a mission. It has a dedicated mission, but it will just release things it discovers to the world in general, right? Like, it will just do things, and there's these spin-off technologies that they will just go, hey, here you go, world. I'll amend that. Nearly all modern firefighter outfits and sort of their fire retardant stuff is a product of NASA's research into how the hell do we deal with the temperatures, the insanely fluctuating temperatures of different areas. So, NASA is one of those things that I really do think has done an amazing job. The problem comes that while a government agency will go, oh yeah, we're trying to get into space, we're trying to, send people back to the moon or whatever, we found that we can control temperature. Here, world, have this technology. What a corporation will do. Now imagine if SpaceX was in that position, right? They're trying to get to the moon, they discover a piece of technology, they immediately patent it, shut it off from the world and basically go, no, you've got to pay us for this technology kind of thing, and then stop anybody else from using it through lawsuits, etc. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's not wrong to abort God. I would agree. I would agree. Yes, pharma companies give millions to congressional candidates. In return, Congress passes legislation that prevents the government from negotiating drug prices, so pharma gets charged whatever. Yes, yeah. Now, places like Australia have sort of gotten around that by basically the government acts as a single buyer of those pharmaceuticals and says, hey, we've got a massive contract for these pharmaceuticals. You can provide it or not. If you don't, at the prices that we want, you miss out. And so currently the American government is trying to stop us from doing that, which is insane. That's insane. Kelly says the problem when it comes to abortion is that many people are supposedly pro-life. They do not care about the child. The child with a child is... They do not care about the child when a child is born. They're pro-birth. Yeah, and I get that. I totally understand that. Yes. They do not give a social safety net for the... and M Series is pointing it out. They don't give a social safety net, and that is one of the reasons why some people decide not to have children, because it's just not economically viable. And that is more a condemnation of our ability to support people who do have children. And I mean, it's not getting any better. Trump's talking about taking away, childcare and saying, oh, we can't provide childcare. It should be the seriously, it's like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. If you want to lower abortion rates, the very quick fix is to provide more support to people having children and incentives for people to have children. That basically will help a great deal. But Christians don't do that. That's the problem. They will actively lobby against that while also lobbying against abortion. There's a really easy way to get people to abort less, and they don't do it. They're not interested in it. They really, I agree with you. I'm consistent. I support a strong social safety net. Also against death penalty. Yeah, I'm against the death penalty. Yes. But the death penalty isn't. It isn't. It basically, with the death penalty, it's a different situation because there are no. You're not. If in order to do the death penalty, you had to, for some reason, I know this is a wild hypothesis, but in order to do the death penalty, you had to take somebody's blood against their will, right? Like, kind of thing. Or something like, there's nobody else involved in that situation. That's a really bad analogy. Please forget I said that, because it's the opposite way round. We're sort of, ending somebody. But I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with the death penalty either. It's just, it's not the right to take life that we're trying to preserve. It is the right to bodily autonomy and bodily integrity that we're trying to preserve. It's not about the embryo or the child or whatever, the offspring. It's not. It's about the woman's right to say what is done with her body, even if that other person needing her body is her child. Like, if my father should not be able to take my blood against my will, even if they need it to survive. And look, maybe at some point in the future, someone and this is what gets me about Christians, that if they wanted to solve the argument over abortion, why don't they put tons of funding into artificial wombs and technology to be able to transfer a offspring in utero into an artificial womb? But they don't, right? Like, that's not what they're interested in. And I don't understand why. Damn, I thought it was happening. I already had my demolition tools out. Oh, I'm not sure what you're demolishing. Maybe the The government, maybe the corporate structure. Undo a vasectomy? I went through a lot of pain not to have kids. No way I'm doing it again. No, that's fair. And I wouldn't look at it, but it is an option. Like, people's circumstances change. It is most of the time reversible. It doesn't always work though. So they sort of put it as this is a permanent choice. But it sometimes is reversible. Sometimes, usually reversible. Not all people who oppose abortion also oppose policies that are to. Oh, no one's saying you do. No one's saying we do. We're really talking about. It's sort of a paradox of Christians mostly, that they don't support social safety nets. When we're not talking about you specifically, but a lot of anti-abortion people do want to take money away from government assistance. Opposing abortion does not mean saying your body must be used for this. That would be forced pregnancy, which is clearly wrong. Once the child exists, it is wrong to kill the child. No. Like that. No, we're talking about if somebody else relies on your body for life, whether they can continue to exist at the cost of your body. Right? Because don't forget, there's always physical changes in a pregnancy, and they can turn really bad, and there can be a risk of up to and including death. And I get it, it's a very low risk. But once that person, it's not killing the child, it's basically not providing them what they need to live. Right? Because you're not talking about a child which is sitting there. It can sustain itself, basically. It is self-sustaining. All it needs to be done is given food and things like that. Or we have the option for social, child services to take it away and care for it, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a embryo that needs the mother's body in order to survive. And the mother should have the right to provide that or not. So this framing of, well, we're going to kill the child is not correct, because that child does not survive without the mother's body. What we're talking about is removing it from the life support system it is on. And I'd love to know your opinion of removing people from life support. The price of abortions are very expensive, and I can remember a friend whom every time she would have enough money saved up, the price would go up until eventually she just had to have the baby. I don't know about that. I have never met a woman that has had an abortion that it hasn't been one of the biggest decisions in her life. I do, maybe there's people out there, I got you. I'm just saying anecdotally. I get anecdotal evidence isn't that great, but this idea that women are just going out and doing it willy-nilly is not what I have experienced from women that have talked about it. It has been a momentous decision, and something that they have really struggled with. Purple says, if someone had a supernatural experience, how could they know if it was God or Satan giving them the instructions? Yeah. And that leads into the evil God hypothesis that, how do we know that God is good? God could be evil and, the bad guy. And you wouldn't know. There's no way you could know. The Bible is poorly written. God was such a diva he couldn't get an editor to work with him. I don't think it's poorly written. I think it's just a product of its time. There's a lot in it that only has, significance to people at the time. Purple, that's one of the tactics in Demonic Invasion Manual. But it is a forced pregnancy if somebody does not want a child, or they want to be... Yeah. It is forced if you make them continue it. Yeah, no, I agree. Government could always give a tax breaks to companies that behaved ethical. If they could never screw their customers, they might be able to operate tax-free. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of like a lot higher taxes, and we have some sort of system to rate just companies on how much they help society versus how much they hinder it, basically. I haven't really thought about it to solidify it, but yeah, I was thinking the same thing. But instead of tax breaks, like really just heavily penalize companies like that are doing horrible shit, companies that are doing awful stuff, and then really, really prioritize companies that are doing the right thing. Every primary religion on earth claims the same thing. Yeah. And they conflict, which is, it's no way for an outsider to tell who's right and who's wrong. Welcome, Beta Ray. Good to see you. I'm a strong advocate for vasectomies. Yeah. Look, I would not force it on anybody. I would not, make sure anybody gets one. I think it's entirely a personal choice. I think that, it was a momentous decision for me. It was it wasn't something that I just skipped into. I don't think anybody is doing this. I think that is something that they sort of say, hey, they're just getting abortions or vasectomy. No, they're not. Absolutely not. Problem with death penalty is how many cases that had been people on death row have been overturned. That's not the only problem. There's massive problems. But yes, innocence for death row. So this is the same argument that I leveraged against a Muslim guy for saying that, chopping off hands acceptable. We've got no way to remedy that punishment. We can let somebody out of jail. We can't let somebody out of death if we find out they're innocent. We can at least do something about it if we lock them up for life. And not only that, life imprisonment is cheaper. Seems counterintuitive, but the stats are there. Life imprisonment is cheaper than putting someone on death row. Death row is also inhumane. The most humane way to kill somebody is probably firing squad. And even then, you're traumatizing the people shooting them, right? Like these sort of these lethal injections, they've been shown to paralyze the person, but they're still in pain. And there's also the problem with medical ethics that doctors won't perform lethal injections. They won't do it. That's why at the moment, Israel, they have done a death penalty for Palestinians, but they have had to make it hanging, right? So we're going back to the frigging Middle Ages. We're going to hang people, right? And the reason why is because all of the doctors in Israel are going, no, we are not performing executions. It's ethically wrong for a doctor to do so. It goes against medical ethics. And I salute them. I think doctors are right to say that. The problem is then, in the case of lethal injections in America, it's put in the hands of somebody who's not medically trained, who's just a not medically trained person. But I support that doctors will not do that. It is a fact that over 3 days worldwide, there are over 1 million live birth babies. In 20 years, this number will probably be tripled. Every baby demands tons of resources in one's life. You had said the rapture had started, so a demolition tools take a wall out and annex my Christian neighbor's apartment. Okay, yep, fair enough. Yep, that's cool. Yeah. Hey, I mean, I feel sorry for them, perps. Like these people. There's one dude who gave away his car and his money and stuff, thinking he was going to be raptured. I mean, there's certain Schadenfreude, but at the same time, that poor dude, like seriously, people literally, factually will not stop bonking each other. Something that else must be needed to stop the endless births. Yeah. There is not and cannot be such a thing as human overpopulation. We cannot expect exponentially more people and be fine. No, we can't. No, you're misunderstanding what overpopulation is there. Overpopulation is the state at which the resources of the environment cannot support the population. We're not talking about, is there too many people like crushed together but they're still fine. What we're worried about is demands on things like water, oil, oh hell, helium. Helium. Like we cannot produce helium. We cannot synthesize helium, and a lot of it evaporates out into space. We've got a helium problem. As I've said before, stop using helium for balloons. I'm not talking to you, M Series. Sorry, I'm talking to the world in general. Stop using helium for stuff. We need it for MRIs and cooling for rockets and important shit. Your nephew's birthday party is important. It's not that fucking important, seriously, that you need helium in balloons. So please stop using helium. For I mean, if you work in the medical industry and you need it to super cool something, I get you. But for birthday parties and stuff, we got to stop using it. Water's going to be a problem. And already in places like here, we have massive desalination going on. It requires tons of power. More people, more power. As much as I would like it to be, renewables we're nowhere near renewables yet. Nowhere near. And that's without taking into account all of the resources, other resources, just for them to live their lives and have a decent life. So yeah, it's not about overpopulation as in we can't fit these people. It's about how the resources will cover that amount of people if they exponentially, are more and more and more. I don't want to read that. But it was sad. But was sad is the one it control. They're the ones that want to stop helping those in need. Yeah. It is sad that they will convince people to stop helping people in need, while sort of preaching moral superiority. I get what you're saying. It's terrible. Oh yeah, the problem is that you are not. No, you are not against helping struggling families, but the people in control are. Yeah. No, I got you. Inefficiencies in the way we organize society, not a limitation of the earth. Well, yes and no. There's definitely limitation on resources. You might say, hey, better technology, we may have the resources to make a better population, or we can use those resources more efficiently. I'm with you. But at the moment, we don't have that technology. I'm not saying you're wrong in the future. What I'm saying is that our population, if we let it go, will vastly outstrip our ability to provide resources. And maybe technology in the future will come through. I get you. It's a problem at the moment. Especially helium. Damn. Every time I see a balloon with helium, I wince. I do. We need that stuff. It's going to, because we can't synthesize it. So the only way we get helium is through the breakdown of radioactive decay from uranium. I can't remember which uranium it is, but it will decay, put out alpha, beta particles, and it will beta particles, and then it will degrade into helium eventually, and it takes forever. Oil, for instance, right? Like oil, basically we know that's the remnants of algae that's been cooked by the Earth's mantle into basically what amounts to a superfuel. It is going to take 300 million years to it took 300 million years for the oil to get the way it is, basically being subducted by the tectonic plates and then cooked in the mantle of the Earth to form oil. We've gone through about half of the world's stockpile in 300 years. That is unsustainable. And I agree with M Series that, hey, technology, if we get clean energy, if we, stop our reliance on fossil fuels, coal is essentially the same thing, but trees instead of the remnants of algae. It's like trees. We've gone through a ton of coal in such a short amount of time. And yes, in a perfect world, we would have renewables and not rely on these. That is not the way the world is. And countries are not looking, like America is not looking to transition at all. Kelly, you are an angel in a metaphorical way. I'm not saying that you're a missionary from God, but in a certain way you are an angel, and we have to go through those. Those go out to Electron Element, Steve Fractals, Daryl Frost, Julian of the... Oh, sorry, not Julian. Jillian of the H. Do you say H or H? H. I say H. I think I've been hassled by chat for that before when I say H. Or H. I say H, don't I? Do I say H? I don't even know what I say anymore. Chat, I know you've hassled me for the way that I say it before, though. And Slick Mullet. Oh, everyone loves a slick mullet. Come on now. Come on. Come on. That's all fake. The problem is that just our social organization, which we can change. It's not that there is not enough. Our ruling class wants us to think that, so they stay at the top. Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but unfortunately, we can't deal with the world as we want it to be. We've got to deal with it as it is, as we currently find it. It would be lovely, and don't look, M series. I like your idealism, and when I was younger, I definitely had that idealism of we could just do these things and have a fairer, more equitable and better world. As I've grown older, you realize that you cannot deal with the world as you wish it to be. You have to make decisions dealing with it as it is. And I'm with you, and I love that, your idealism of a better world and that we could change the social organization, sure. But I would love it. And I'm all for it. I really am. But until that happens, I'm just a dude on the internet. I don't have control over that. I have to deal with the world as it is. To put 8 billion batteries for devices in 8 billion people, example, mass invasion, forcing unions for rare earths. Well, I mean, I think we can get rare earths without doing that. I do. But, yeah, there is a point where that's going to become a problem. And I think we have to do policies in line with our social and technological progress. We can't do policies for what we wish the world was, not what it is. GOP wants to annex other races for their resources. Yeah. I mean, Trump is crazy for rare earths. I gotcha. Make vasectomies free for the men who do not want to have children. Sure. You are wrong about overpopulation. There is no limit to growth and no meaningful limit to resources. It's all artificial. Yeah, I would disagree with you on that. Look at oil. We have used about half the resources that the world has in 300 years, and oil takes 300 million years to replenish. About there. Yep. Where's the water, the batteries, the foods, and so on coming from? Right, and you have what's called problems that go over cascading problems, right? Cascading problems are ones that, in solving a problem, they can cascade into a greater problem, right? So if you exponentially increase the amount of people, say in my city, for instance, you've got to provide water. Now that water, because of the area that we're in, we don't have a lot of water, so it means desalinization.
and water recycle, but mostly desalinization, right? That desalinization requires a lot of power. And so in order to get a lot of power, you've got to have all these other resources, put into electricity generation. The renewables aren't up and running yet, so it's got to mean coal fire power plants, these power plants, and that means gas power plants, all kinds of problems. That climate change means drought, right? So more of these power generators that produce greenhouse gases means greater effects of climate change. That means more drought. More drought means that you have less water. And you see what I'm getting at? It's a cascading problem. So there's these problems which is sort of, assuming that, hey, if we solve this problem, everything will be good, where there's problems that you solve that will cascade into bigger problems. Or they will make the original problem a lot worse. So, less water because of drought. You've got to have more desalinization. You've got, right? You see where I'm going with this? It can be a problem. There are communities in Arizona that have run out of water already. Yeah. Look, my city would have run out of water if we did not get very serious on desalinization. And my state, Western Australia, I know, you've probably never heard of it before. I've probably never talked about my state before, but we are one of the world leaders in desalinization. Like, I get you, there's ways around this. It's just we've got to be aware of the problems. Small town in Georgia is having a problem because ICE built a detention center that's taking most of the town's water. Dang. You'd think that ICE would lead to more water being available, but no, apparently not. That was a joke. Where is the water coming from? It's disappearing from the planet. What do you mean it's disappearing from the planet? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I think that we can get more water through desalinization, recycle, right? So you recycle wastewater, purify it, and then put it back into the system. Hey, it might sound disgusting for you. It's necessary for some people out there. It just is. That's the way it is. We've got to survive. I think there could be more of that, and it could be fine. It's not disappearing from the planet. The water cycle doesn't make it disappear from the planet. But the problem isn't so much water, it's fresh water. It's portable water. It's water that's able to be drank. I mean, there's a ton of water out there. It's called the oceans. The problem is it's full of salt. We can't drink it. Don't drink the salt water. People, do not do it. It will not be a problem. Yeah, potable water. Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, no, it's not just inefficiency of the economic system, it's inefficiency of the technology as well. And hey, in the future there's probably going to be enough technology, but what we've got to do is make sure that our demand on resources does not overtake our ability to use those resources. Or what will happen is that people will live in a really horrible state of suffering. That's the problem. Even green energy has environmental impacts. Hydroelectric dams end up causing the production of greenhouse gases. Right. And, if you want to do solar power, you do need, lithium and cobalt and all these other, minerals that you need to mine and stuff. It's not, we're not saying that it's one problem solves all kind of thing. I get you. But, at the current rate of climate change, I don't know how we've got any choice. I was today years old when I found out about helium. Yeah, it's one of those things that I found out about and I've been harping on about for years and years and years, and nobody listens, of course. It's kind of, it's one of the things that worries me. At some point, you might need an MRI. I'd like there to be helium in order for it to work, essentially. I think at the moment, China is actually working on an alternative. So that would be great if China could come up with an alternative. Hey, it'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. Let's see. Lakes have dried up in Africa. All of the Great Lakes are more than 11 feet below the levels where they were 30 years ago. Where are you going to get the water? Yeah, thawing glaciers as well. Yes, correct. Yep. The ocean, electrolysis. You can get fresh water or potable water out of salt water. It does need a ton of power, though. That's the problem. I knew the world was running out of helium, but didn't know how it was made. Yeah, it's a problem, Perps, because helium not only is, like, we can't synthesize it because it's only made from radioactive decay, it also escapes out into the space as well. So it's kind of a double whammy crap show. It's bad. It's bad. Arguments in the chat. I might skip that. Oceans are rising. Yeah, they are. Hell, there's the very first climate refugees have arrived in Australia. That was a few years ago. Their island no longer exists in the Pacific. It's underwater. Yeah. Great Lakes are getting less snow. Great Lakes agricultural less precipitation mean that less food being grown. Yeah, and that's it. Less water, less food. Can't use salt water to water crops. We do need to get away from fossil fuels. Nuclear plants may be the alternative with the least environmental impact. Yes, that is true. I still think that renewables are a better solution. They cost less to run. They're actually less expensive to set up and less expensive to run. Plus, renewables are better because you can, like, for instance, you can roll them out in a modular way, right? You can roll them out as, turbines here, turbines there, wind turbines all over the place. You can roll them out as, oh yeah, we're going to put down X amount of solar panels, then just add to them as you need them. They're, like, from an engineering standpoint, it's all around better. It's all around better. Because you don't have to have a fuel going in. There is no waste coming out. The consequences of, say, for instance, a maintenance failure isn't as drastic. Don't get me wrong, I know nuclear plants are pretty safe, but they do need to have very rigorous maintenance standards. Solar panel field, your maintenance does not have to have the same rigor, right? It just doesn't. And you can just, like, if you need more power, you can just slap down another one and add to it. It's not building an entire, nuclear plant. Okay, settle down. It's not anti-human settlement. It's not anti-human sentiment. It's not anti-human. No. Nobody's against humanity. Oh, well, I'm not against humanity here, okay? I just think it's wise to consider our resources when looking at population and not just say resources are unlimited, because you know that's untrue, right? That I'm assuming you mean a metaphor, because you know that resources aren't literally unlimited, right? They're not infinite. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. We can feed many times more than what we had. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's more the drain on water, which affects crops and things like that. That's the problem. It's more water that's the problem, but and other things as well. Like I said, there's certain resources that we're kind of getting low in, and we can't provide for the entire population if we let it go unrestricted. But Hey, you're entitled to your opinion. Anyway, so how did the poll go? Oh, you mean they're not meaningfully limited? Yeah, no, I disagree. I disagree. We have measured the amount of oil in the world and calculated how much of it we've used, how much of it is actually there. Maybe look it up, because if you go through half in 300 years and your usage is exponentially rising, there's going to be problems down the line. I mean, look at this. The Strait of Hormuz closes and, the entire world's in a tailspin from just that. Okay? Just that resource. And that's not, like, as much as you keep saying it's a social problem, it's not a social problem. It's an engineering problem. Our systems have been set up to run on oil. Now, even if there was the political will to change that overnight, we can't do it overnight. Our systems run, the certain things that once they change, like once they run out, they're not, we can't just change immediately. Yeah, we found new ways to extract, but like, I'm not saying that, hey, we've used it all up over this time. Yeah, new ways to extract, sure. But at some point, if it takes 300 million years for that oil, it doesn't just grow back magically. My guy, what are you talking about? I'm aware of that. Like, it doesn't grow back. It doesn't just reform. The oil that we have is the remnants of algae that covered an entire sea where the Middle East is now. Right? The blooming of algae that died and was subsumed by plate tectonics. It was then cooked. So what we're doing is we are burning 300 million year old sunlight. Right? That is the sunlight captured by the algae that then died and then it was cooked into oil 300 million years ago. Right? I'm all for it. I'm all for moving to renewables and all that, but I have to deal with the world in front of me. That's basically it. I have to deal with the world that is in front of me, and giving us more time to change is something that we have to do. That's something we have to do, is give us more time to be able to change what we're doing. So with that reality, yeah, and I'm all for it, M Series. I admire your idealism. We have to deal with the practicalities of the world around us. That even if we decided to change overnight, we have to set that stuff up. And I agree there is not enough politicians changing to renewables, taking the lack of resources into account, investing in renewable energies, investing in research for how we use this better. I agree with you, but I don't have control over that, right? Like, you've got to understand that we can only change the things that we have control over. And so one of the things I can do is not have children and maybe give us a little bit more time. That is something I can do. And I am willing to do it. That's it. Oh, I'm not banking on the idea that people will start consuming less. I'm banking on the idea that a lot of people, that birth rates will lower, so we don't put a huge demand on the resources. That doesn't mean I think that they're, suddenly going to consume less. So no, that's not what I'm saying. But anyway, it's a fascinating conversation. I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I just think that at the moment it's impractical to demand that because A, they're not willing to do it, and B, the way that our society's been structured from an engineering standpoint, we just can't. We have put ourselves in a position of reliance on this stuff, and that's a problem. And hey, I would have loved that 20, 30 years ago they started the change then, and I was railing for it then. It didn't happen. So, yeah. I don't know about social progress. I don't know about social progress, but I think there is a utility to if somebody decides that they're worried about resources and not have children. That is my choice. I wouldn't expect anybody else to choose the same thing I would. I think that everybody should make their own choice. However, I'm pointing out facts that resources aren't in essence unlimited, and that exponential growth will lead to a problem with some resources. And I know this because we already have a problem with some resources. Look, M series, I get you, but hey, if I think it's good for social progress, that's my opinion. We can agree to disagree, but that's my opinion. I don't think it's good for social progress. I think it's good for the survival of humanity or the well-being of humanity. It's got nothing to do with really social progress. And that's, yeah. And you can disagree if you want, but hey, as long as you're not using helium balloons, I'm good. Anyway, let's see. Have I my poll? Oh, nobody voted on my poll? Is this right? No one voted on the poll? No one's interested in the poll anymore. We've been completely sidetracked from Is God the Arsehole? No one voted on the poll, apparently. Well, that's just wild. Okay. All right. Complete wash. Or is it just that YouTube is not working again? Oh, no, it's just not working again. Okay, people did vote. I do apologize. People did vote. Just YouTube was showing me nothing the entire way down. So, yeah, YouTube's screwing with me. Yeah, something went wrong. Yeah, Beta Ray, something went wrong. Something went horribly wrong. And surprisingly, it wasn't my fault this time. So, yeah, I'm not going to claim this one. Something's really going wrong with my program. Look, wow, that's wild. It's been doing this recently. It's been doing this recently. Give me one sec. Anyway, yeah. So that was Is God the Arsehole, which quickly turned into a Future of Humanity, which I'm always happy to have discussions on. I'm always happy to debate. I would certainly debate that issue. Will humans run out of resources in the foreseeable future? I think I'd be happy to debate that one. I really do. I think that it is a question. It definitely is a question that's argued over. I have my opinion, not a problem. You can have your opinion. That's cool. I respect it. I don't agree with it, but I respect it's your opinion. Sure. But hey, I always like those discussions, so I'm very happy to have them. I think at the end of the day, we can all agree that we probably should not use the Bible as a moral imperative. It is probably a really bad idea. It's great to see the old sister wife trick come back, this time by Isaac, who decided he was going to do the old sister wife. And I really feel sorry for the king, Abimelech, who basically he's got this family that just keeps coming back and convincing them that their wives, their sisters and their wives are their wives are their sisters or their cousins. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. I'll find some way to send you, but yeah. Yeah, that's sort of a fine-tuning argument kind of thing. I'm just wrapping up, so um single-celled organisms don't have a mind. I don't know. I don't know why you would think that that's generated by a mind. I'd like you to show that, but that's really weird. But you're sort of coming in late stages. I'm going to wrap up. Do take care. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.
To what new horizons can we look now? Where are tomorrow's opportunities? The frontiers of the future are not on any map. But now, what's ahead of us?